Dear Democrats, I'm going to tell what just happened today when I had DoorDasher drop off what I bought. The front of my house, I have an American flag, a Don't Tread on Me flag, and a Trump 2024 flag that I hang every day. And my DoorDasher pulled up, and he was a black man. And when he got out, he was kind of stern faced and like, and he comes up, and I go, as soon as he gets out of his car, I'm sitting there waiting at the doorway, and I say, "Hello, my friend. How are you doing today?" And he just looks up and he smiles. He's all of a sudden smiling from ear to ear. He's like, "Oh, I'm doing great." And as he comes up to the door, because I live in a rural area and it's kind of hot today, I was like, "Hey, man, I've got some bottled water in the fridge. I've also got Dr. Pepper or Pepsi. You want something to drink?" And he's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Thank you. That is very kind of you." I don't want to do his Rwanda or his accent, but he kind of you could tell he's an immigrant. And I was like, "All right, man, no problem. So, how long you lived here?" And he's like, "Oh, I moved out here about 5 years ago, man. I love it out here. Everybody's so nice, but it's really weird." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, because usually the nicer people have American flags out. And then I saw the Trump flag, and the news has been telling me that you are racist and hateful." And so when I got out, I was like, "Oh, great. I'm going to have to deal with this guy." And I was like, "Yeah, don't watch the news, man. Don't watch the news. The new it, it, true older people like me in America, politics doesn't define who you are as a person. It's stupid." And he's like, "Well, why do you have a Trump flag out? Why are you voting for him?" And I was like, "Well, because he was voted for by his peers in a primary to be able to run for president, and Kamala Harris was just installed like a dictator." And he just looks at me and goes, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, nobody voted for Kamala Harris. She ran for president. Nobody voted for her. She had to drop out before even the California primary, which is her home state. Nobody voted for her. And nobody voted for her in the primary. She didn't run in the primary. Nobody ran in the primary against Joe Biden. They waited until after the primary to kick Joe Biden out and install who they want as a dictator. So I'm backing Trump." And he's like, "Oh, so you're not like a Republican?" And I was like, "No, I'm an independent. I like the Constitution. It means something." And he's like, "Well, it's funny you say that, because it's kind of the reason I left Rwanda, because in Rwanda they just installed people. The votes didn't matter, and we knew it. We'd go and vote, and then the next day there'd be a fire behind the place where we were voting. They were just burning our ballots. So I came to America because I, it's a better place, and I actually, once I become a citizen, I have say." And I was like, "Yeah, well, that's what they're doing now." And he's like, "That's disgusting." And I was like, "You don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Just look into it. Look into it. Google it." That's how you change people's minds and their perspectives. You actually have a conversation with them. You be nice to them. You fucking tell them what you don't call them names. You don't belittle them. You don't take away their humanity to get them to listen to your ideas. You just tell them, like, I'm a kind person. This is how I am, and this is why I'm doing this, and look into it. So the Democratic Party could take a lesson from that. That's how you talk to people. That's how you get votes. You don't let tons of illegal immigrants come across the border and then give them free money and then go, "Oh, also, we're going to allow you to vote. So you could vote for us because we're going to keep giving you free money." Because that's not going to happen. Once they get the vote, they don't care about you anymore. They just care about staying in power. They are not going to give you more free money after they get elected. They're going to work more on their other obligations and their other fucking ideals, and try and pass those until it becomes election time again. And then you'll start getting free money. It's called buying a vote. It's very illegal, but that's what the Democrats do. And nobody calls them on it because the media and like everybody that's installed in government is Democrat. So You need to look at the history of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Like Juneteenth, nobody in America really knows the real reason Juneteenth is a thing. They don't realize that 2.5 years after slaves were free, a bunch of Republicans showed up in Oklahoma and Texas and Alabama and still saw people working on a fucking slaves, still being treated like slaves, working on a fucking plantation. And a bunch of Republicans showed up and said, "Oh, you guys know you've been free for 2.5 years, right?" And they said, "What?" Yeah, because if it turns out if you can't read and you're not educated and you're a slave, the only fucking news you get is from your slave owner. So if your slave owner never tells you you're freed, you're just still working as a slave. That's why Juneteenth exists. Everybody's going, "Oh, you're going to take that from a white guy?" You don't have to take it from a white guy. You can take it from a black guy. You go and listen to Sawwell. You could actually open a history book. You could Google Juneteenth. The South was the Democratic Party during the Civil War. The Democrats were the ones that had the slaves. I mean, granted, only 1.6% of people in the United States at the time actually owned slaves, which is, when you think about it, a very small percentage. But still, if you're going to make that an argument point, at least look into it and find out what was going on. And then you want to look into recent future. Look at what LBJ said. Uh, to paraphrase, he basically said, "I'm going to make sure that these N-words vote Democrat for the rest of their life." That's what Democrats do. They don't see you as people. They don't see you as equals. That's why they keep going, "Oh, they need a hand up. They need extra money. They need reparations." They promise you that shit to get your vote. And then once you vote for them, you're never going to get it. You're never going to get it. Republicans at least treat you as a person on equal footing. I'm not going to give you a handout because of the color of your skin. I'm going to help you because you deserve it, because you had a hard time. Something happened to you. I will be your friend. But I'm not going to just go, "Oh, look at that black guy. Let's just give him money. Oh, look at that black guy. Give him an ice cream cone. Here, have all my groceries just because you're black." That is the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. Kamala, an Indian woman, and a Jamaican woman who they keep saying African American. Nobody from her family's from Africa. They're from. You talk to a Jamaican, they're like, "I'm not African American. I'm a fucking Jamaican. Fuck you." There's no Indians in Africa, so she's not even an African American woman. And she's having a concert with Megan Thee Stallion and giving out free pizza to the people that show up. That's called buying a vote. It's illegal. But nobody's going to report that because all of the news sources are Democratic fucking shills. They they're owned by the Democratic Party. Their owner, like, they have to push forward a narrative to be able to maintain power. That's it. The best way to change someone's mind is to be kind, to be open, to be honest, and to talk to them as if they're a fucking person. I don't know how that's so hard for the Democrats to figure out, but they still haven't figured it out yet. And they have the nerve to call people that are against them racists, phobes, sexists, because that's the only way that other people are going to listen. The brainwashed civilians that they've got on their team are going to vote for them. If you talk to them as a person and you don't call them names, and it's almost impossible to talk to a brainwashed Democrat without them calling you names or trying to attack you, or they don't even get the information right. Like, all of these Democrats are like, "We're queers for Palestine." Why? "Oh, they keep bombing Gaza. It's a genocide." You do realize the West Bank is a huge section of Israel. That's also Palestine, and Israel isn't bombing the West Bank where a lot of Palestinians live. They're bombing a 2-city block where terrorists live, and you're calling it a genocide. Do you even know what the fuck you're talking about? Germany went to neighboring countries and started killing the Jews that were in neighboring countries. They didn't just kill the Jews that were in a 2-city block in Germany. They were killing Jews wherever they found them. The Armenian genocide. Turks and Arabs were just eliminating Greeks and Assyrians and Armenians and crucifying them in the desert because they were like, hey, if your God was crucified, then you deserve to be crucified too. It'll get you to your God closer. To this day, Armenia is still in the middle of a genocide because Azerbaijan and Turkey and all the neighboring countries are still trying to wipe that tiny little country, the tiny little pocket of the world that they have, out by bombing their churches and trying to cut their country in half to create a highway so they could get their military through them and completely wipe out Armenia as it stands, no matter what. And you want to talk about what's happening in Gaza is a genocide? You can suck my balls on that one.